how much budget do I need to allocate to Meta?
It's definitely not cheap. If you don't have 10K to spend purely on media, really, then it's going to be tough because in the end, like how you're going to set up your campaigns is mostly going to be a broad targeting, and the algorithm needs to do all the work in order to find the right audience for you. And additionally, you need to figure out creative. Like it's all driven by what your videos, what your statics look like. So there are a lot of moving pieces in this, and you will need some spend in order to figure out what you're doing and prove if the channel is interesting to you yet. That's why 10K media spend, I think, is the bare minimum so that the algorithm has enough signal to optimize for you and you can test through a few creatives and figure out, okay, what's my messaging? Which creative type should I use? On top, of course, comes also media production costs. So I would always recommend like hire someone that knows what they're doing to make your first ads, because if the ads are an additional unknown variable and you made them yourself, you aren't sure if you did it the right way, then you will never going to know if the test was valid in the end, because if a creative is bad, then performance is going to be bad. So kind of 10K media buying budget, another maybe 5K for production costs of creative, and that would
Jeez.
get you a kind of solid first test to see where you're at.
I'm assuming 10K a month.
If you spend it in 14 days, then that's up to you, but I think you need to spend the 10Ks to get some valid results in.
Can you stretch it out longer than a month, or a month is probably 10K a month?
It all depends on how much your conversion event is going to be costing in the end. So you're probably going to optimize for your trial start. And if that comes down to 15, $20 per trial start and you want to be driving 50 a week, then that's how you can kind of look into how much you want to be spending that week. If you're spending 50 bucks per trial start, then you would probably run through the budget a bit quicker.
If you have a niche app that is more specific to a different region, do you ever try to not do broad targeting, or is it always the case that you do broad targeting?
It depends a bit on what's the status of the whole company. Sometimes the company has been around and there was a lot organic already, or they've been driving in the end traffic from other sources. And then lookalikes can be a really interesting source where you can start on a targeting that you kind of pre-qualify so that the algorithm doesn't have to do that for you as they receive these conversion events. So that might be an interesting starting point, but mostly like for new developers or the ones that didn't have all that much traffic yet, Meta is the first channel. It means you don't have data to base targeting on. And then I wouldn't recommend using interests or anything like that, because in the end, it's not super efficient. Like they pick interests based on like browsing behavior, like what you liked on Facebook at some point. And oftentimes, I haven't seen that like an interest targeting really delivers higher quality, but you're going to pay higher prices because you're kind of restricting the audience. So
Interesting.
then I'd rather go broad and make good creatives that then tailor to the audience that you're looking to attract.
So even if you, let's say you have an app that's targeted to parents, still broad targeting, right creative that talks to parents, let Meta figure out that, hey, you're targeting new parents as an example, because in the creatives it talks about, hey, just had a newborn, whatever, right? So
Yeah.
still broad targeting.
Yeah. I would
Interesting.
usually recommend, yeah.
What's a reasonable CAC for Meta ads? If my app only has a 50 cents to $1 LTV per customer, is it even possible to run Meta ads profitably?
It definitely plays a role like how much you're charging. Like if you kind of are a subscription app and you have a yearly at maybe $29.99 or something, then it's going to be really tough no matter how efficient you are, just because CPMs are high and the calculation is going to be really, really hard to achieve. I haven't calculated that through on like a per user LTV basis, but it does sound like 50 cents to $1 in LTV could be a tough one. And you might be thinking about, I mean, it's still worth then giving it a try and see like what's my funnel conversion, like am I actually able to attract people efficiently at good prices, are they converting? And then you can still think about raising the price based on these learnings. But if you already see, okay, the funnel is bad, it's not converting well, people are dropping off even at a low price, then maybe you have a different issue that is not the pricing in the end.
Ivana's question, how many downloads do we need to create a lookalike audience? When you're doing a campaign setup, do you start off with, let's say you have the 1,000 minimum emails, do you start off with the lookalike, or you just generally start off with like, hey, broad, let Facebook do its thing?
If lookalikes are available to me, then I would do both probably. Like
Okay.
broad is usually my default, and then if lookalikes are available, I use them. You need a lot more these days because device identifiers aren't broadly available anymore. On iOS, you might have very few, but then also they have to be kind of double opt-in on Meta and on your site to be available. And email match rates are often very, very low, because in the end, what needs to happen is, of course, you want the minimum amount of 1,000 users, or I always say rather like 2,000, is what you need to find on Meta. So Meta needs to be able to make that match. You send them an identifier and they find that person in their database. So they need the right email address, or they need that device identifier. And emails are often not a great identifier, because I set up my Meta account, like my Facebook account, like 15 years ago or something, and it's not an email
Yeah.
address I would put in anywhere else anymore. So hence they can't make the match. So I usually recommend that you want at least 10,000 entries to upload based on Google app identifiers, IDFAs that are still available, emails, whatever you have there, just to make sure that even if they are only matched 20% of the people, you still land on a 2K audience, which is then relevant for them to create a good lookalike. If you create a lookalike based on installs, you're paying a premium while you're looking for people that are, like, in the end going to install your app, but that doesn't mean they will pay. So if you're paying that premium, that means you want to go after a very valuable audience, and hence I always try to like create lookalikes based on subscribers. If you have a ton of data, then rather go into like more specific ones, even so subscribers on iOS or in a specific market, and then you can really see an uplift in quality from that.